I wasn't supposed to be home that early. Most Thursdays, I'd leave the office around 5:30, hit traffic on the loop, and walk in the door a little past 6:30 with the usual post-work exhaustion. That day, though, a couple of meetings were canceled last minute, and for once, I had a chance to get ahead of the curve. I left at 4, stopped for Nicole's favorite chai latte on the way, extra foam, almond milk, touch of cinnamon, and figured I'd surprise her. You know, do one of those small but thoughtful gestures that say, "Hey, I'm thinking of you." I remember being in a pretty good mood as I pulled into the driveway. That's what gets me. I wasn't suspicious. I wasn't playing detective. I just wanted to come home to my wife a little earlier than expected. But the second I stepped through the front door, something felt wrong. First, it was the silence. Usually, Nicole had music playing when she was home alone, lo-fi jazz, acoustic playlists, or one of her random true crime podcasts. That afternoon, there was nothing. Not a sound except for the low hum of the bathroom fan upstairs and the occasional creak of floorboards coming from our bedroom. The house had a strange stillness to it, the kind that settles in your bones before your brain catches up. Then came the smell. A sharp, unmistakable scent that didn't belong in our house. It was musky, clean, woodsy cologne, definitely. Expensive, too. And not mine. I hadn't changed brands in years. This wasn't something Nicole used either. She preferred citrus and floral notes. This was different. Masculine. Intrusive. I stood in the hallway with the front door still cracked behind me, just breathing it in. My brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe she sprayed something? Maybe it was a sample from the magazine pile she always kept in the bathroom? But I already knew those explanations weren't going to stick. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe one of her friends had stopped by. Maybe someone hugged her at the gym. I told myself to calm down, to not go spiraling. But it's hard to keep calm when every instinct you have is on edge. I set the chai latte down on the kitchen counter and walked slowly up the stairs, each step heavier than the last. As I reached the top, I heard movement. The bathroom fan cut off, followed by the soft sound of a drawer sliding shut. Then, footsteps. Quick, deliberate, like someone getting ready in a hurry. Nicole appeared at the top of the hallway a second later. She was wearing her usual gray house dress, the one with tiny floral patterns near the sleeves. Her hair was damp, hanging loose over her shoulders, and her cheeks were pink like she'd just come from a steam room. She looked caught off guard. Not shocked, but definitely not pleased. "You're home early," she said, almost like it was a problem. "Yeah, meetings got canceled, so I figured I'd beat the traffic. Picked you up a chai," I added, trying to sound casual. She blinked, then nodded, offering a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, thanks. I was just about to hop in the shower." I gestured toward her damp hair. "You already did." She laughed, but it was off, right? I meant I was thinking about washing my hair again, to humid out. She walked past me without another word, her steps quick and oddly purposeful. No hug. No kiss, no casual, "Hey, how was your day?" Just straight to the kitchen, like nothing was unusual. I stood in the hallway a few seconds longer before curiosity, or maybe something deeper, pulled me into the bedroom. At first glance, everything looked normal. The bed was made, the closet doors were closed, her makeup bag was still open on the vanity like usual. But then my eyes landed on something that didn't belong. A phone. Black, sleek, no case. Just lying there on her side of the dresser like it had been set down in a hurry. I know every device Nicole owns, we've both been pretty open about that. She had an iPhone, a smartwatch, a tablet she used for recipes, and a beat-up old laptop from her grad school days. This wasn't any of those. This was new, different, and more importantly, I'd never seen it before. I stared at it for a moment, unsure what to do. I didn't reach for it, didn't even move closer. But just the sight of it, in our space, unexplained, made the air in the room feel heavier. That's when she came back in. "Oh, that?" she said, catching my gaze. "That's my old backup phone. I found it at the bottom of a drawer and charged it last night. Thought I might use it again." Her tone was light, almost dismissive. But her eyes were sharp, watching me too closely. "You never mentioned having a backup phone," I said. She shrugged. "Yeah, I had it years ago. Prepaid thing. Thought I lost it, but turns out it was buried in my sock drawer." She picked it up quickly and slipped it into the pocket of her house dress. Too quickly. I didn't push. Something inside me told me not to. Maybe I was still trying to convince myself that there was nothing to push about. "Okay," I said simply. She nodded once and walked back out of the room. I sat down on the edge of the bed, pretending to take off my shoes, but my eyes lingered on the spot where the phone had been. That scent from earlier still hung in the air. Not as strong as before, but enough that I knew it hadn't come from me. Not from our detergent. Not from any candle or air freshener we kept around. And now there was a mysterious phone. One that had never been mentioned in over a decade of marriage. Suddenly charged. Suddenly visible. I wanted to brush it off. Tell myself I was being paranoid. But something in her eyes, in the stiffness of her voice, in the rush to move past the subject. It clung to me. Dinner that night was weird. She made spaghetti, her go-to when she didn't feel like putting effort into conversation. I asked her about her day, and she told me about a new girl at her yoga class. I asked how her mom was doing, and she gave a vague, same-as-always answer before changing the subject. Her phone, the one I knew, buzzed once on the table. She picked it up, checked it, then turned it face down. It wasn't until later, when she thought I wasn't looking, that she slipped out to the hallway and pulled the black phone from her pocket. She was whispering. I didn't confront her. I just sat on the couch, staring at the muted TV, hearing only half of what she was saying. She was careful with her words. No names, just soft, broken sentences. Something about later, and not now. And I said I would. She ended the call in under a minute and walked back into the room like nothing happened. I told myself maybe it was her sister, maybe her mom, maybe some emergency I didn't know about. But deep down I knew. I didn't sleep much that night. I stared at the ceiling while Nicole lay beside me. Her back turned, breathing evenly like someone with nothing on their conscience. I kept rewinding everything. The scent, the expression on her face when she saw me, the phone, the way she tried so hard to make everything seem normal when it clearly wasn't. And that one word kept echoing in my head, over and over, until it drowned out everything else. Why? I barely got through the next day at work. Everything felt slow, distorted, like I was underwater and the world had kept spinning above the surface. I sat at my desk, staring at spreadsheets I'd normally breeze through, but my focus kept drifting back to the night before, to the smell, the strange silence, the mysterious black phone Nicole claimed was her backup. I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. That's what I kept telling myself. Anyway, but it didn't feel like I was jumping. It felt like I was connecting the dots in a puzzle I didn't realize had already been scattered across our life. That morning, while brushing my teeth, something shifted. I started mentally sorting through things I'd noticed over the past several months. Little moments I'd dismissed, excuses I'd accepted, shifts in her behavior I had chalked up to stress or routine changes. But now, framed against the backdrop of that cologne and the stranger's phone, they didn't seem so small anymore. It started with the gym. Nicole had never been a fitness fanatic. For most of our marriage, she avoided anything that involved sweating in public. But sometime last fall, late September, maybe, she became obsessed with getting stronger. She bought new running shoes, joined a gym across town, and started going twice a day, morning and evening. At first, I was proud of her, even encouraged it. I thought maybe she was just investing in herself after a long stretch of burnout. I offered to join her a few times, thinking it might be a good way to reconnect. She brushed it off with a laugh, saying, "You wouldn't last 5 minutes in my class." I thought she was joking. Now I'm not so sure. Her schedule began to shift too. There was always something, a quick meeting, a last-minute errand, or girls' night. But she always came home later than she used to, often after I'd already eaten dinner or showered. She'd walk in flushed, out of breath, but smiling, like she'd just come from something thrilling. I assumed it was the endorphins, Now, I wonder if it was someone waiting in the parking lot outside that gym. Another thing, she started locking her phone. For nearly 10 years, Nicole and I shared everything. Passcodes, calendars, accounts. It wasn't even a conscious decision. It just never felt necessary to keep secrets. Then one day, about 6 months ago, I tried to check the weather on her phone while mine was charging. I got hit with a passcode screen. "Oh," she said, noticing me struggle. "I started locking it because my group chat got weird at work. Just easier to keep things private." I didn't question it. Why would I? But from that moment forward, that phone became a part of her. She never left it lying around, never charged it in the kitchen like she used to. It was always either in her pocket, under her pillow, or face down within arm's reach. And then there was that dress. God, that dress. It was a black cocktail dress with a silver diagonal stripe across the waist, subtle but elegant. Nicole had worn it on our anniversary a few years back. I remember because I told her she looked like something out of an old movie, and she kissed me like we were still in our 20s. She said it was her favorite. About a year ago, she told me she had donated it. "Didn't fit right anymore," she said with a shrug. "Might as well let someone else enjoy it." I hadn't thought about that dress in months. Until 2 weeks ago, we were watching a movie together. Well, I was watching. She was on her phone, eyes glued to the screen, fingers tapping quickly. When I asked what was so interesting, she smiled and said, "Just group texts. Michelle's ranting about work again." I glanced at the screen. It was off. Completely black. Not dimmed, off. She wasn't texting anyone. It should have registered as a red flag, but it didn't. I told myself maybe the screen timed out. Maybe she was just responding to a text that had already been sent. I didn't want to believe the alternative. I wasn't ready yet. Now I am. I remember one night last month. She came home late from a girls' night. I had fallen asleep on the couch, and when she walked in, I stirred just enough to see her silhouette. She was barefoot, heels in her hand, her hair slightly undone. She moved quietly, like she didn't want to wake me, but something about her dress caught my eye. It was black with a shimmer. I didn't get a good look, but something about the way it caught the light looked familiar. When I asked her about it the next day, she told me it was new. A gift from her friend Danielle, who'd outgrown it. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She had become sharper, too, emotionally. Shorter fuse, less patience. She'd snap at things that never used to bother her. If I forgot to take the trash out, I'd get a cold shoulder for half the night. If I asked how her day went and didn't listen closely enough, she'd accuse me of not caring. I thought maybe she was overwhelmed, or perimenopause, or maybe I was just screwing up and hadn't realized how distant I'd become. But now I think it wasn't about me at all. It was guilt, and guilt needs a target. When someone's hiding something, they project. They lash out not because of what you've done, but because deep down they need to justify what they're doing. If you're inattentive, then maybe they were right to stray. If you're distant, then maybe their betrayal wasn't betrayal, it was just them coping. Sitting there at my desk, tapping the same row of a spreadsheet over and over again, I finally saw it all at once. Like watching a film in reverse. Each frame snapping into place with a new, chilling meaning. Her sudden obsession with fitness. The locked phone. The night she said she was going to bed early, but stayed up scrolling through her budget. The time she left a voicemail on speaker by accident and scrambled to shut it off halfway through. The way she had stopped asking me to help her choose outfits. The way she stopped asking for anything at all. It was like I had slowly been cut out of the script. A ghost drifting through the periphery of my own marriage. But the worst part wasn't the dress, or the silence, or even the damn black phone. It was how SK** led she'd become at lying to me while looking me dead in the eye. There's this line I once read, something about how betrayal doesn't come from enemies, but from those closest to you. That stuck with me, because when it happens, when the truth finally starts to peel back, it's not just heartbreak. It's disorientation, a rupture in the map of your life. And suddenly, I didn't know which version of Nicole was real anymore. Was it the woman who brought me soup when I was sick last winter? who laughed with me during snowstorms and danced barefoot in the living room when we had no money and nothing but each other? Or was it the woman who whispered into a stranger's phone behind a locked door, who lied effortlessly and smiled while doing it? Strange. I didn't feel anger, not yet. I felt suspended, like I was standing on the edge of something and hadn't decided whether to step back or let go. I closed my laptop, walked into the break room, and stared out the window. And for the first time in 10 years, I had no idea what Nicole was doing, or who she really was. By the end of that week, I had stopped trying to convince myself I was imagining things. The question wasn't if something was happening anymore. It was how far had it gone? And how long had I been the fool in the room, smiling through it all? I didn't sleep much those nights. Nicole didn't seem to notice. Or if she did, she didn't care enough to ask. She was still leaving early for the gym, still returning with that same half-guilty glow and just enough energy to mask fatigue. Still taking phone calls in the laundry room with the door closed. Still brushing off questions with a laugh that had no real warmth left in it. It's funny how once you start noticing one lie, the rest start revealing themselves like dominoes toppling over. The only thing worse than knowing something was wrong was not knowing everything, so I decided to find out. At first, I tried the subtle route. I checked the home Wi-Fi history. Our router stores a list of connected devices, and I figured I could use that to see if anything unusual popped up when I wasn't home. I hadn't done anything like this before, not in our entire relationship, but desperate curiosity makes you resourceful. I downloaded a simple IP tracker on my laptop, something that logged activity every few minutes and saved the device names that accessed our network. For 2 days, nothing seemed unusual. My laptop, her phone, my phone, her tablet, the smart TV, the fridge, even, all accounted for. But on the third day, a Thursday, I left for work around 8:15 a.m. Nicole was already gone for her morning cardio. When I came back that night, I checked the log. And there it was. A new device had connected to the network at 9:12 a.m. It wasn't labeled, just a generic Android A1 tag. That wouldn't have meant much if not for the fact that it disconnected exactly 37 minutes later. Long before I got home. Long enough to not be noticed. Short enough to leave a digital footprint. One she hadn't accounted for. She was letting someone into our house. And whoever it was, they had their own phone. Their own presence. Their own time slot the hour after I left for work. While I sat in traffic listening to podcasts and sipping gas station coffee, someone else was in my home. That night, she curled up on the couch next to me, humming along to a show I wasn't watching. She even reached for my hand, rested it on her thigh like old times. Took everything in me not to yank it away. I wanted to ask her who he was, what his name was, whether she told him about me, whether he used the shower, whether they laughed at me when I wasn't around. But I said nothing. Not yet. Instead, I took it further. That weekend, while she was out shopping, I opened her laptop. She had left it charging in the dining room. It wasn't password protected, at least not anymore. I don't know if she'd grown careless or just assumed I wouldn't look. But when the screen flicked on, I saw something that hit me harder than I expected. Her desktop background had changed. It used to be a photo of us from a cabin trip 3 winters ago, the one where we got snowed in and ate box soup by candlelight. Now it was a generic beach landscape. Peaceful. Empty. Devoid of anything resembling us. I opened her browser. Clicked the history tab. It was mostly what I expected: shopping sites, fitness blogs, streaming platforms. But one thing stuck out. A profile she had visited repeatedly, every single day for the past 2 weeks. Sometimes in the morning. Sometimes around lunch. Once at 2:43 a.m. The name on the profile, Damon Rivers. His photo was at the top. A man in his early 30s, fit, smug-looking, the kind of guy who posts shirtless mirror selfies with captions like, "Grind never stops." His feed was a highlight reel of abs, workout routines, protein shakes, and gym group sh*TS. And buried halfway down the grid was the one that made my stomach lurch. It was a casual photo, taken during what looked like a party or maybe a barbecue. Damon was in the foreground, smiling, holding a drink. But behind him, barely in focus, was a woman wearing a black dress with a silver stripe across the waist. Nicole's dress. The one she said she donated. The same one she said she hadn't worn in years. Even in the blur, I could recognize her. Her posture, her hair, her shape. She was turned slightly, laughing at someone just out of frame. Her face wasn't fully visible, but I didn't need it to be. I'd seen that image 1,000 times in my head, tucked into memories I used to treasure. Now it looked like evidence. She was standing next to Damon. No one else around them. Just her, smiling, alive in a way she hadn't been with me in months. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. My hands were numb. My jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. And yet, I didn't close the browser. I wanted to keep looking, keep confirming, as if the more I saw, the more real it would become. I clicked through a few more of Damon's posts. In one, she commented with 3 flame emojis. In another, he replied to someone. Not her, but said, "You gotta meet Nicole. She's next level." That was 2 weeks ago. I closed the laptop, sat back, and just breathed. That was it. That was the moment. The before and after. The undeniable proof. No more excuses. No more guesses. She wasn't pulling away because of stress. She wasn't locking her phone because of work. She wasn't going to the gym for her health. She was going to him, and he was coming here, to my home, to our bed maybe, to the place I built with my bare hands, one paycheck at a time, believing it would hold us forever. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But instead I just sat there, hollowed out, like something inside had finally cracked open and emptied. There was no yelling, no dramatic music playing in my head. Just this awful, quiet clarity, the kind that changes your entire life without making a sound. Nicole came home an hour later. I had already put the laptop back, cleaned up the kitchen, acted normal. She asked if I wanted Thai or Italian. I told her I wasn't that hungry. She said I looked tired. I said I'd had a long day. We sat in silence for most of dinner. She scrolled through her phone, the real one, the one I was allowed to see. But I knew better now. There was another phone, another man, another life she had carved out of mine while pretending we were still in it together. That night, I lay awake while she slept beside me, curled up and breathing softly, as if nothing was wrong, as if everything was intact. And I realized something that chilled me more than anything I'd seen online or smelled on our sheets. She didn't feel guilty anymore. She had moved on. The only one still trying to hold on was me. And that was about to end. I left on a Tuesday. No theatrics. No dramatic speech. No slammed doors or screaming matches. Just silence. The same kind of silence that had crept into our marriage over the past year and slowly smothered everything we once shared. I had spent the entire weekend pretending everything was fine, smiling when I had to, nodding when Nicole spoke, even kissed her cheek once as I left the kitchen, just to see if she'd flinch. She didn't. That Sunday night, I lay awake beside her again, the air thick with the scent of her rose-scented conditioner and something else I could no longer ignore. Distance. The kind that isn't measured in feet or inches but in trust, in absence. That void between two people who used to talk about everything and now didn't even ask how the other slept. I watched the slow rise and fall of her back as she breathed. I studied her shoulder, the curve of her neck, the way her fingers curled around the edge of the comforter like they used to curl around mine. It hit me then, like a quiet truth slipping through the cracks in the dark. I didn't know this woman anymore. Not really. She was a stranger wearing my wife's face. So I waited. 2 more days. I gave myself time to plan it out with the kind of care you give to funerals and endings. I packed slowly, methodically. Nothing that would make her suspicious. I started with a small duffel in the back of my closet. An old gym bag she never paid attention to. I filled it with the essentials. A few changes of clothes, my passport, birth certificate, car title, checkbooks, and an envelope filled with spare keys and flash drives I'd always meant to organize. I didn't take any of the sentimental stuff. No framed wedding photo. No anniversary gifts. No silly cards we used to write on birthdays or inside jokes scribbled on Post-its. All of that could stay. It belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. Monday evening, while she was upstairs on yet another work call, I quietly moved the bag to my trunk. I even left the garage door half open, like I always did after taking the trash out. Just another routine movement she wouldn't think twice about. That night, we watched a movie together, or, rather, it played while we both pretended to be present. Nicole scrolled through her phone. I watched her from the corner of my eye, wondering who she was texting. I wondered if it was him, Damon, if he knew I was still here, if he thought I was clueless, if he laughed about it, about me. And then I realized I didn't care what he thought. This wasn't about him. This was about her, and me, and what I had left of myself to protect. Tuesday morning, I left just before sunrise. I moved quietly, deliberately. I didn't shower, didn't eat, just threw on jeans and a hoodie, grabbed my wallet, phone, and keys, and slipped out while the sky was still dark blue, and the air still held that cold early morning bite. She was asleep. I didn't look back at her. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a text. I didn't even close the bedroom door behind me. The silence was my goodbye. I drove without a destination at first, just put distance between myself and the house that no longer felt like home. Every streetlight I passed, every freeway exit I ignored felt like peeling another layer of her off my skin. I rolled down the window and let the wind hit my face, hoping it would carry away the weight I'd been holding in my chest for far too long. By mid-morning, I was 40 miles away and still hadn't decided where to stop. I pulled into a diner off Route 74, the kind of place with sticky booths and a waitress who calls everyone hon. I sat in a corner, ordered black coffee and dry toast, and watched the locals shuffle in, talking about the weather and high school football like the world hadn't just split open for someone like me. After breakfast, I opened my laptop and started looking for temporary rentals. I found a furnished studio on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just clean and quiet and anonymous. It had a tiny kitchenette, a couch that sagged in the middle, and a balcony that overlooked a parking lot full of rusted sedans. But it was mine. Mine alone. I paid the deposit, signed the lease online, picked up the key an hour later. That night, I sat on the floor with a fast food bag and a warm bottle of water and stared at the blank wall in front of me. It was the first time in weeks I felt anything close to peace. No one texted me. No one asked where I was. She hadn't noticed yet. Or maybe she had, and the silence suited her too. I got a burner phone the next day, just in case I needed to call someone without her tracing it. I turned off my old one and stuffed it in the glove box, screen dark, like the life I'd left behind. The next few days passed like fog, grocery runs, long walks, setting up voicemail with my lawyer. I didn't call my parents, didn't tell my friends. Not yet. I needed this part to be mine, undisturbed and quiet. Pocket of time before the fallout began. My attorney was a local guy, friendly, efficient, no nonsense. He asked, "You want to fight or walk away clean?" I said, "I want her to have the house, just not me in it." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure? You built equity." "I built a lot of things," I said. "Not all of it's worth keeping." We filed the papers that Friday. The grounds were simple, irreconcilable differences. No mention of infidelity. No screaming matches. Just ink and silence and a clean exit. I signed them in a plastic chair in a waiting room that smelled like old coffee and lemon cleaner. The pen felt heavy in my hand, but my signature never shook. That weekend, Nicole called twice. Then she texted, "Where are you?" Then again, "I'm worried." Then again, "I don't understand." I didn't answer. She called my mom, then my brother. They didn't know where I was. I hadn't told them either. I figured if she wanted to play house with a stranger behind my back, she could live with the aftermath of that choice. Without explanations. Without me there to soften the blow. I started working part-time at a local auto shop. Old school kind of place. Grease under the nails, coffee in a dented tin pot, guys who didn't ask too many questions. It was quiet work, honest work, and it gave me something to do with my hands while my head tried to reassemble itself. There were nights when I'd wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I was still in our house. I'd reach for the other side of the bed only to feel cold sheets. Sometimes that was a comfort. Sometimes it wasn't. But slowly the ache dulled. I started keeping a notebook, nothing dramatic. Just scraps of thought. Quotes. Lists. Memories I wasn't sure I wanted but couldn't let go of yet. One entry just read. She was already gone before I left. I just hadn't noticed the echo. The following week, Nicole finally responded to the divorce filing. No counter. No delay. She signed. Returned it. No message attached. That was it. Just a FedEx envelope and a final mutual unraveling of the life we had stitched together piece by piece. Somewhere along the way, Damon disappeared. Or maybe she let him go. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. I'd already learned more than I ever wanted to. I didn't block her. But I didn't reach out either. She sent one last text a month later. I miss you. Even now. I didn't respond. I wasn't angry. I was empty. But even emptiness has clarity. And in that silence, I found something close to freedom. By the time the divorce was finalized, the leaves had started changing. Summer had bled into early fall, and with it came that crisp morning air that always used to make Nicole smile. I remember thinking about that one morning as I watched fog roll across the windshield of my car. She loved fall. Said it made everything feel like a fresh start. I guess she got hers. The paperwork was clean, legally speaking. My lawyer said it was one of the least contested divorces he'd handled in years. No screaming. No courtroom drama. Just initials and signatures and not a single word exchanged between us directly. We could have been signing a lease. Or refinancing a loan. Not dissolving a decade of marriage. When the final decree came through, it arrived in a standard manila envelope, delivered to the small P.O. box I'd rented near my apartment. It felt anticlimactic, no final stamp of closure, no paragraph-long summary, not even a note from the lawyer. Just 2 sheets of paper with our names separated by lines and legal terms. That was it. That was how it ended. I sat in my car with the envelope on my lap for 20 minutes before I opened it. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe part of me thought it would hit harder. That there'd be some overwhelming grief or a flood of regret. But all I felt was the same cold quiet that had been living in my chest since I walked out of that house. Nicole kept the house. That had been her request from the beginning. I didn't fight her on it. She offered to buy me out of my half. Her lawyer said she could liquidate one of her investments to cover it, and I agreed without much thought. I didn't want anything from that place. Not the furniture. Not the equity. Not the memories. She transferred the payment directly to my account the same week. I stared at the transaction confirmation on my phone, watching the numbers update like it was someone else's money. I moved part of it to our daughter's account that night. Sent her a message with no explanation, just, "This is yours now. Use it for school or whatever you need." She replied the next morning with a single word. Why? I didn't answer. It was too hard to explain that I was trying to salvage something, anything good from the wreckage. That I didn't want her to look at this mess and think love was worthless. That I wanted her to have at least one thing she didn't have to question. My daughter, Lauren, was 22. Already had a job, already halfway out of the nest. She was sharp, had always been the kind of kid who could see through people in a way that unnerved adults. She had visited me once since I left the house. Brought coffee. Sat on the edge of the couch in my tiny apartment like she was trying not to break anything. She didn't ask me why I left. She didn't need to. But she did say something that stuck with me. "Mom's not the same," she said, staring at the floor. "She acts like nothing happened, like you just vanished." "She's good at that," I said quietly. Lauren looked up. "Did she cheat?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to say yes. I didn't want to burden her with that version of the truth. But she already knew. "She did," Lauren said flatly. "Didn't she?" I looked at her and gave the smallest nod. Her jaw tightened, and she stood up, pacing toward the window. "She lies about it," she said. "Still. Pretends it's your fault. Says you were distant. That you walked away for no reason." I closed my eyes, breathed in through my nose. Maybe it's easier for her to believe that. "She wants me to move back home," Lauren added. Says the house is too quiet. I didn't say anything to that, because that's exactly what it had become. My son, Michael, took it differently. He was 20, in college. Always had a sensitive heart, the kind of kid who read people more than they realized. When I left, he didn't respond to my messages for weeks. Then one day, I got a text that just said, "I don't know what to say." I replied, "You don't have to say anything. I'm here when you're ready." When he finally called, his voice cracked in the first 30 seconds. "I feel like you both lied to me," he said. "Like you pretended everything was fine and then just split." "I'm sorry," I told him. "We were trying to protect you from it." "I didn't want to be protected. I wanted to know what was real." He stopped visiting Nicole altogether after that. I didn't ask him to. I didn't encourage it. But something in him had broken too. He started staying on campus even during long weekends. Didn't answer her calls. From what I could tell, he hadn't spoken to her in over a month. Nicole tried to fix things with them, at least for a while. She sent texts, made attempts, offered brunches and apologies and vague explanations. But they knew. Maybe not the full story, but enough of it to know something fundamental had been betrayed. One night, about 2 months after the divorce, Lauren called me. "She's alone," she said. "I stopped by. The house is a mess. She looks tired." I didn't ask why she was telling me. I knew. There's something weird about shared history. It clings, even after the paperwork says it's over. "She asked about you," Lauren added. "Said she thought you'd come back." "She thought wrong," I said. There was a pause on the line, then a soft sigh. "I don't think she knows who she is without you." I wanted to feel something when she said that. Pity, satisfaction, maybe even a flicker of old love. But I felt nothing, because that was the whole problem, wasn't it? She hadn't been with me for a long time. She had just lived in my orbit, existing beside me like a coworker in a long shift neither of us could quit. When I left, she stayed behind in the ruins of what she thought she still had. She tried to rebuild something with Damon, from what I heard. But that didn't last long. 3 weeks, maybe 4. He ghosted her. I'm not surprised. Guys like that don't stick around once the fun fades. Once it turns real. And suddenly, she was alone, in a too big house, with fading memories and 2 kids who didn't trust her anymore. I didn't take pleasure